I pushed my patience to the brink to make the best Bumpy plushie I could. But now we're putting it to the test to see if it can hold up against an official Camp Cretaceous plushie. Who will win? To find out, we have to start at the beginning.
Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. The show Baby Micah dreamed of. So of course when the new Chaos Theory show came out, I was all over it. But here's the issue. I make plushies from just about everything I love, but Jurassic Park? I hadn't been able to find a single dinosaur with enough character to make into a plushie. Until...
I mean, there was Bumpy, so maybe I could find a way to make her cute? I mean, let me just search for...
Oh my gosh! How could I forget about Baby Bumpy? Look at her! She's so freaking adorable! Oh, and bonus! I already have an official Bumpy plushie, which means we can do a buy versus DIY just like you guys liked so much with the Sprigatito video. So I guess I know what we're doing today. Cutie baby. So hello everybody, my name is Micah, and today we're making Baby Bumpy from Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, and then putting it to the test against an official Camp Cretaceous plushie. And maybe you'll even find out enough to decide if buying the official one is right for you. Oh, and stay tuned to find out how you can get your hands on a brand new Sew Micah sewing pattern. You're gonna like this one. That said, I am way too excited about this project, so let's head on over to the desk for the design.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is we go as realistically accurate as possible. I found this amazing reptile fur that I thought I'd use for the, cream parts of her. I'm sure nothing will go wrong waiting an extra 2 weeks for the fabric to get here, just so I can test it last minute to see if it'll work for this project. Yeah, I'm sure nothing bad will happen. So maybe not that. I'll just use my regular fur instead. But this should still look really, really good because I'm gonna give her custom glass eyes. I know I've been doing it with every plushie lately, but it's so cute. They're just so gorgeous. I can't not do it. I'm gonna go with pure black eyes, even though technically they have some color. I just think it's cuter if it's pure black. As for the rest of the plushie, I'll just use my regular old Cuddle Minky fabric. Now that we have all that figured out, I have to figure out this pattern. Okay, that was a lot, but here's what happened. Naturally, I tried to get it all right first try, but Bumpy's head just wasn't working. It was too flat. So I whipped up another pattern that made the head a whole lot chunkier. And that one seemed too chunky. So even though I was running out of both time and steam, I went ahead and made another head with some slight tweaks. And... What? So once again, I had to shift my schedule around so that I could have one more day of prototyping. And while this last head isn't perfect, I think it'll be good enough to do the final plushie. So now we can finally get started on that final plush. Okay, now this is where things get a little complicated. Well, not complicated. Very much not complicated at all. Tedious. Because do you see every single one of these little swoopies all over the place? Well, in every single one of these little swoopies, I need to sew on a little gray bump. And remember, these are double-sided. So, yeah, let's just get started before it hurts my brain too much. Oh my goodness. That was like 4 straight hours of detail work. But now that we have all these teeny tiny little details done, we're gonna have to move on to some bigger detail work. The details never end. Okay, real quick while I'm working on this is one of those projects that it really matters what order you do things in. Some projects, it's just like, I don't know, it could go either way. But this one, the order is very specific. In fact, I actually started sewing something earlier that I was not supposed to sew yet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this right now. I can't sew that. Because if I sew that, I literally can't put the body together at all. It's like I was making a burger and I put the top bun down before I put the burger on. So remember, when you're making a plushie or making a pattern, keep that order in mind. Always, always, always have a plan for what's gonna happen first and what's gonna happen last. That way, if you're making a pattern, you won't have to do a ton of tests. And if you're using a pattern, you won't have to redo things over and over again. Wait, are we talking about patterns? Because, oh boy, do I have a pattern for you. That's right, I have another plushie pattern for you all right now on my Patreon for Bear Tier patrons. It'll be for this adorable little Ankylosaurus egg plushie. It comes with full instructions on how to use the pattern, and even pictures to clear up some points that might be a little confusing in text. So if you like this pattern, make sure you join and get your hands on it before the end of August. After that, it'll be gone for good. But if you're less into sewing and more into, say, coloring pages, we have those too. Plus all these other things over here. Honestly, I'm obsessed with this month's phone background. It's kind of my favorite ever. So if you liked anything you saw here, make sure you check out patreon.com/sewmicah for any and all of these benefits. And as always, a huge thank you to my Pixie Tier and above patrons. You guys are the best, and you really keep this channel running. Now, I think that's enough of responsible adult Micah, so let's get back to making this plushie. Stop. Look. Did you see that? Play it again. Did you see it? One more time for the people. If you look very carefully, you'll see the hands of somebody who just royally fucked up. Because, surprise, I was not supposed to cut that seam allowance off. Parts of this pattern are very different from how I usually put my patterns together. In this case, that means I needed that seam allowance to be able to connect the body together. The only way to fully fix it would be to redo an entire day of work. Basically, remaking the entire back part of this plushie, which I was not about to do. Instead, I decided to struggle with what tiny amount of seam allowance I had left for 3 hours. Much better. And no, there is no footage of that because all it would have looked like is this. Very entertaining. But now that that part's done, we can detail this back piece and finally get the plushie put together. So the next most important things are going to be getting the thighs on the legs and getting the body pieces sewn together. Now this is going to be tricky because I have very little seam allowance to add the legs on. So there's a chance you won't see the legs being put onto the body. You'll see these legs, just not these legs. So let's get to work. What? Of course I'm still watching. I watched 2 episodes. Never again. Guys, I'm never doing this again. I will never bring this pattern out ever again. It is retired. Gone donezo. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. This thing was excruciating to work on. Any part that was connected to the back of the body was an impossible nightmare. I'm not even exaggerating. It's not the pattern's fault, the pattern is fine. What wasn't working was the sewing machine. I needed like an industrial strength sewing machine for this project. All I had was my dinky little sewing machine I got years ago. Okay, anyway, now that that part is over, it's time to move on to the second worst part, attaching the underside of the body. Usually this isn't that bad, but unfortunately the puffy body strikes again. This will also be nearly impossible, so enjoy the next section with all the difficult bits cut out for your viewing pleasure. Just know they happened, and they were brutal. Okay, this has been a nightmare of a project, but we're almost done. All we need to do is add on the feet. So let's use a little magic to speed things up because I'm gonna explode if this takes any longer. Done. Now let's turn this little lady right side too. Okay, the skin is done. She already looks so good. If not a little sleepy, which means up next, we're gonna have to make those eyes, because she can't be sleepy forever. Ooh, also, because you made it this far into the video, I just wanted to quick remind you guys to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and that, along with watching the video all the way through, is the best way to support me in my work here without having to pay anything. That keeps me going, the channel going, and these videos coming out for you guys. Now, let's go get those eyes done. Whoa, hold on, hold it right there. That is UV resin, and as of recording that clip, I had no idea how dangerous it is. You may have seen me and plenty of other people using resin for all sorts of crafts, but what I and probably a whole lot of other people didn't know was that resin can cause a whole lot of long-term damage even with protective gear on. Resin works on a molecular level, meaning you may not see resin on you, but it may be getting through your gloves and into your bloodstream. I'm not gonna go fully in depth here because I'm not a doctor or a scientist or anything, but I will give you a couple places to start on your research in the video's description. Please go check them out before thinking about working with resin. But long story short, from what I can tell, resin can cause asthma, burns, potentially increase your chance of cancer, and even cause long-term allergies that can affect what you can buy, touch, wear, and even the ability to get medical intervention for unrelated issues in the future. You do not want to be working with this stuff. Like, at all. Obviously, I can't stop you from doing whatever you want to do, but absolute bare minimum, you should be using this stuff outside, wearing a full proper respirator, using eye protection, multiple pairs of nitrile gloves. At least that's what I've heard. And if resin gets on your gloves for whatever reason, take them off, cure them if it's UV resin, and throw them away. Just please, 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 please be very, very careful. And if you want my advice, stay away from resin. It is not necessary whatsoever, even for the gorgeous glass eyes that I've been making. I'm currently in the middle of researching way less dangerous alternatives. And once I find one, I'll be making a free tutorial on how to make these glass eyes and putting it up right here on YouTube for everyone to see. I just know directly or indirectly, I encourage people to use resin, and now I feel it's my responsibility to do the opposite. So with that all said, let's get back to making this plushie. I think next it's time to stuff it, which is the best part. Perfect for following up this downer of a segment. Let's get to it. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It's bean time! Okay, now it's time for hand sewing. All we need for this project is one color of thread. That would be this cream color. We're gonna need to sew up the stuffing hole, which is underneath one of these back legs, and sew her eyelids up. Super easy, super simple, and now she's a flat little pancake. Let's get to work. Project complete. But now it's time for what you're really here for, the
competition.
We have 5 categories, and they're all scored out of 10. Some categories are objective, some subjective, so remember, this is all just for fun. And hopefully by the end of the section, you'll have enough info to decide if you'd rather buy a Bumpy like this one, or DIY your own. I'll also be giving a special So Micah ranking to each plushie based on their score. So make sure you stick around all the way through the scoring to find out both the plushie's ranking and who's gonna win the title of Best Bumpy Plushie, according to So Micah. Your mileage may vary. vary. So up first, we have the time category. Since I got official Bumpy so long ago, I kind of can't remember how long it took for her to arrive, but I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that I got her with my mom's Amazon Prime account and got 2-day shipping, meaning she's getting an 8 out of 10 here. My Bumpy, on the other hand, took a bit longer than expected at 5 days to finish. That's gonna give her a 5 out of 10 in our first category. Not a great start for our DIY, but there's plenty more categories to go. Next up is price. Now here's the thing. My plushie could cost one of two prices depending on how you look at things. She could cost $400 if you count the cost of my sewing machine, or she could cost around $50 if you don't. Because one could technically hand sew their plushie, and some sections might actually be easier sewn by hand, I'm gonna allow her to be rated based on the lower price. How I score this category is I figure out what price I'd immediately snatch up this plushie at, and then take away points as it goes above that mark. That way we compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So with a dream price of $15 and an actual price of $20, official Bumpy is getting an 8 out of 10 in this category. Not bad, but not an immediate impulse buy. The DIY with a dream price of $30 and an actual price of about $50 is gonna get a 7 out of 10 in this category. Honestly, not too bad. Next up, we have accuracy. That is how accurate the plushies are to their source material. Official Bumpy has quite a few things that bring down this score, unfortunately. Some of which are pretty hard to ignore. The colors being way too saturated, the face detailing being off, the tail club being both the wrong color and the wrong shape, the bumps on her back being printed rather than 3D, and not to mention she's all cheapified. I mean, she's absolutely adorable and I love her, but those cuteness modifiers do mess up her scoring in this category. So unfortunately, she's gonna have to get a 4 out of 10 here. But don't worry, she'll get a little something back in the bonus round. When it comes to the DIY plushie, she's absolutely killing it in this category. There are a few things off, like not having the right amount of toes on her front feet due to patterning constraints, and the detailing on the face not being quite right either. But overall, she's nearly perfect. So she's getting a 9 out of 10 in this category. Next up is our first fully subjective category, hug feel. Our official Bumpy is a little on the smaller side, making her not super comfortable to hold on to. She'd be great for a little kid, but for me, she's gonna get a 6 out of 10 in this category. Our So Micah Bumpy, on the other hand, has the opposite problem. She's just a little too chunky to have a perfect hug feel. Though she's not bad as a little road trip or movie buddy, just kinda chilling on your lap like a cat. She can also be laid flat over your chest, which is a little better than the other options. So with all that in mind, I'll be giving her a 7.5 out of 10 here. Moving on to our last category, we have sensory feel. Once again, another subjective category, but still very important. For me, if a plushie had a bad texture, I may not even be able to think about touching it. Luckily for these two, they both have pretty good sensory feels. Little Bye Bumpy is getting an 8.5 out of 10 for the majority of the body being mochi menki, the stuff squishmallows are made of, along with having a secondary fun texture of the leathery eyes. I would be careful about messing with them too much though, because this type of fabric does tend to wear down, crack, and peel apart. The main downside sensory-wise are the rough edges around some of the details, and the fact that they use some really cheap, not nice fabric around the eyes. I have no idea why they skimped on this detail. Like, you got this far with all the mochi minky, why did we not do something nicer for under the eyes? I don't know, but overall, not bad. DIY Bumpy over here, though, is actually gonna get a 9 out of 10 in this category. She's got some pretty nice regular minky for the top half of her body, but the bottom half has the most luxurious fur known to man. Plus, she's got the extra texture of the glass eyes. Overall, both of these plushies are great options for dino lovers of all kinds, but one of these cuties has something extra special about them that deserves a bonus point. So even though I don't personally like things like this, I'm giving the official Bumpy an extra point for having a voice box. Now, with our scoring section concluded, I've tallied all the points, and it's time to see who will reign victorious in this buy versus DIY competition. Now, in first place, with a score of 37.5, is the So Micah Bumpy! And that means
in second place with a score of 35.5 is the official Bumpy. Both of these cuties have earned themselves the Somaker rank of lovely jibblies, and I am so happy with how both of them did in this competition. It was honestly such a close race. Like, I didn't expect it to be that close. Overall, if you prefer accuracy over price, learning to make your own plushie might be your best bet. But if all you want is a cute plushie of your favorite little dino, I think both of these are equally as good. Even if the official Bumpy didn't really score as well, I think that's mainly because of the accuracy category. It just wasn't really made for chibi recreations. Seriously, if the accuracy category was just an aesthetic category, I think these two plushies would have tied. I do hope you all had fun with this video, no matter what the results ended up being. Remember, this is all just for funsies. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and check out the videos on the right for more plushie making fun. I promise they won't disappoint. I'm so hungry. Let's go get something to eat.